Hey, and welcome back to another episode of Filzys Workbench Journal. Now, I mentioned last time that I was starting to lift out of my funk, and I started dabbling with a kit I've built many of times. I shouldn't say that many, about 4 times. It was the old Monogram F106 Delta Dart in 1/48 scale. Well, I finally started working on it. Like I said, I'm feeling a little bit better, mood wise. Still not quite there, but that's going to take time. But getting back on the bench is kind of a relieving feeling. So, without further ado, we'll talk about what I've been working on with this kit and where I am right now. Anyway, I usually when I build a model airplane kit, I start off in the cockpit. But in this case, I decided to go a different approach in the assembly department and start off somewhere different on the Monogram F106 Delta Dart kit. From this point on, I'm either going to refer to as the 6 or the Dart. So anyway, let's get to work here. I ended up starting up in the main gear and the nose gear well. As you can see right here, I did my usual. I spray painted, I shouldn't say spray painted. I airbrushed in the main gear well, as well as other parts accordingly. This way it'll give it time to dry so I could focus on the cockpit. Let it dry for a little while. I used Tester's interior green instead of the usual green zinc chromate. It's a little darker and gives kind of a little bit more of a olive color to it, and mostly because from the reference photos I've seen on the F106 or the 6, it showed the gear well and the nose gear well had more of a, it was more brownish as per se in the interior wells instead of more of a bright green. So I went with that. Gave it some time to dry. I picked out every little detail here, consisting of a couple varying shades of black. Used silver to represent all the piping and stuff. It is a little excessive because once I close the wings, nobody's really going to know the difference, but I will. And especially when you have people who have grubby little hands and they have a habit of flipping it over to see what happens. So I worked on that. Also did the nose gear well here, as you can see here. This is actually a 3-piece affair with this kit when it comes to the nose gear well. It's a little more complicated than it should be, but to be fair, there's a lot of detail in the nose gear well. So I focused on those, once again, varying shades of silver and black. I also got here, I still got to paint this section here. This will be an aluminum or steel or close to it, judging from the reference photos. And once I got all said and done, worked on the wash. This way it gave it a darker look. I'm still debating whether or not to dry brush it. I might not because I wanted to give it more of a dark look. Reason for the wash, at least for the gear wells, pretty simple. I wanted to give it more depth, and this way reduce its toy-like appearance. I mean, it's already got raised panel lines since it's a Monogram kit, but I'm going to be doing pre-shading and stuff on that one for future reference. Gave it time to dry, focused on the cockpit. Cockpit is still a work in progress. I still gotta put a wash. I did do the basics though. I gave it its gray tub. This is the tub here, by the way. Gave it the gray, all the corresponding parts gray and black. I still got the control stick I gotta finish up. I did get the ejection seat, which is provided with the kit. Still gotta add a little bit of detail here and there, but I did get the basics done down pat, which is what I wanted. Once everything's said and done, I'll give it a wash. I'll dry brush it, pick out the details, varying colors of gray, silver, black. The normal routine. I'm still debating whether to dry brush it first, though. I might not, because like I said, still going to put a wash. The wash, on the other hand, I'll be using a Payne's gray or black, probably with the Payne's gray because it's not as intense. And it'll give a more realistic appearance. Like I said, still got a lot of work to do on that one. Otherwise, everything's coming out good. I forgot to mention about the ejection seat, though. This is not an aftermarket. This is the actual Monogram ejection seat provided in the kit, and it's still very good. I used it anyway because I'm not going to pay a lot of money for an aftermarket seat that I'm only going to get one of. And also, there's really no need for it, as well as there isn't photo etch parts, so I don't need those either. Well, that was, like, gave that time to dry, got everything else done. I started doing test fitting, and I started gluing everything else. I ended up gluing the upper wing here to the fuselage. Did the fuselage first in sections at a time, glued it here. Reason for this is Monogram is known for not having the best fit in the world. Best way to approach these kits is like doing a limited run. Take your time, test fit. Any trouble spots, sand it, because I'm trying to avoid as much putty as possible, as much filling and sanding as possible in general. So far, I'm getting lucky. Any sections I miss with the glue, I'll worry about it when I get to it. Speaking of glue, since the plastic on this kit, and it's an old kit, it's actually the first boxing, like I mentioned, I ended up going with this stuff. It's not quite as good as the Ambro Pro Weld or the 10X7R, but it's just as effective. I was going to use the Tamiya Extra Thin Cement, and then I realized not a bright idea. And two reasons. One, the glue is a little different as compared to this, but on the other half, it also, because of its properties similar to 10X7R, it doesn't just fuse the joints together. It kind of melts the seams, and then if you squeeze it, a little bit will ooze out, which you could scrape off. And this works for me on a Monogram kit because this way all I have to do is a little bit of scraping and just a touch of sanding, filling and sanding, and use surface primer when necessary. This kit is, like I said, this kit's not an easy kit to build. Excuse me. It's not an easy kit to build. It's never gonna be. But because of the experience from previous kits, I figured, you know what, let me try a different approach to assembly. It actually worked pretty good, so there isn't many gaps or seams to work on. However, there's still this trouble spot, but that's no big deal. I could do a little bit of sanding, a little bit of filling. May end up trying to put in some super glue to reinforce anything on it, so it's less likely to break or something. But otherwise, it actually went along very, very nicely. I also lucked out because the plastic isn't as warped as I thought it was going to be. It's actually practically warp free, so I got lucked out on that one. I also took care of the landing gear, cleaned it up to get it ready, because with the nose gear area, I still gotta install this. This is going to be tough unless you find a way to install that nose gear without any hassles. I'm going to have to glue that in there into this piece here, into this. And now I got to figure out how to mask it and take care of it without any hassles. I still got to put the in-flight refueling receptacle here. I'll worry about that after I get everything assembled and done. I'm hoping I'm not running into any more fit troubles. And so far there really hasn't been any. But I already know this is going to be a challenge of a kit. And I also did a lot of test fitting in the fuselage section. I'm hoping it won't be that bad of a gap. Or in here. This has always been the trouble spot for the F-106 from Monogram. It's always been, because if you don't have it right, it's going to go all wonky and stuff, and it's not going to look right, and you're going to have to do it. And it's going to require a lot of work. And I've actually used super glue a few times in this section to reinforce everything, so I'm hoping I won't have to resort to that. But before I did everything else, I also did the burner can. This is a separate section. I did the exhaust section, I did the flame holder, and I did the inside black. I dry brushed everything with burnt metal because I'm going to be honest with you, it's pretty dark in there, and unless somebody really looks into there, it's no big deal. That's all I really did, and also gives it more of a realistic finish. Glued it, put it together, set it aside. I actually broke out the Vallejo model color for the first time. Used it on this section. It actually works pretty good. It only took one coat. It's a little glossy, but I'll be using a flat coat, so it's really no big deal. Everything's good. I'm going to use a black wash to fill in that whole section, add shadows and depth, and add a little bit of dirtiness, since this is a relatively old aircraft during that point. And then I'll dry brush it with the according colors. Once all said and done, it will be installed. I'm going to be installing this, parts for the main gear section, the nose gear, in the bottom half, and then the upper half's going to get the cockpit. And hopefully by the next video, I'll have the basics assembled, I'll be taking care of the next step, which is probably the missiles, fuel tanks, and I'll have the landing gear painted. But this is what I got for now. I'll keep you guys updated on what's going on next. And hopefully things will go according to plan with this kit. Like I said, it's not an easy kit to build, but I think I'm getting lucky so far. I'm wondering when my luck's going to run out. So happy modeling. Take it easy, guys, and hopefully I will talk to you again soon with everything progressing nicely. Take it easy.